All right, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on your whereabouts. My name is Thomas Trombley. I am a Senior Program Manager with the Windows Servicing and Delivery team, and we want to welcome you to our Ask the Experts panel discussion. Our team is responsible for delivering the monthly quality updates that you affectionately refer to as Patch Tuesday, as well as the twice yearly feature updates. I am here today or this evening with a number of my colleagues to assist you with any questions that you might have with regards to Windows servicing or upcoming. Hopefully you've had a chance to attend some of the sessions thus far. Maybe you caught Satya's keynote earlier this morning or earlier today. But before we get to our questions, I thought we'd just have a quick introduction from fellow attendees to introduce themselves. I'll have Ari lead us off.
Hello all, my name is Aria. I work on Windows Update Management, specifically on Windows Update for Business, as well as the update platform that supports Windows Server Update Service as well.
Thank you. Joe, you want to say hello?
Hello, I am Joe Lurie. I'm a product manager with Microsoft 365 and am fairly knowledgeable in all things deployment and management of all of your devices.
Great, thank you. And Dune, if you could introduce yourself for us today.
Yeah, hi folks. This is Dune DeZarmo. I'm a program manager working on Microsoft Endpoint Manager. My focus is on servicing for Windows and all things related to updating the Windows operating system as far as Endpoint Manager is concerned.
Great, thank you. Now we have a few others that are on the call and will be attending and assisting, and I'll have them introduce as they come off to answer questions. But I thought we'd just jump right in and see what we have amongst our published questions this evening. So the first one comes from Anonymous, asking, will the new feature of combining SSU and LCU be also available for older LTSC versions like LTSC 2019? And I'm not sure if our panel can ask, or excuse me, if they can answer that question this evening, but I'll give them a shot. Does anyone want to tackle that first question?
I can take that first question, Thomas.
Thank you, Aria.
So, as you know, we just actually announced that we would be making this change for version 2004 to combine the SSU and LCU for on-premise management from both Microsoft Catalog as well as WSUS. While that change actually isn't quite live yet, it will be shortly, and we are still determining how far back and if we're going to go further back than version 2004. But when we do, you'll be the first to know, and we'll make a big splash about it and talk about it in tech community as soon as we have decided what versions it'll be made available to and when. So stay tuned.
Great, thank you. Our next question, I may actually put Joe on this one, we'll see, but will the fall Windows 10 releases all be minor updates in terms of build differences and install times, a la Windows 10 1909 in relation to Windows 10 version 1903? So I think there's a couple of things to tackle within that one, Joe. You want to help us out with that?
Sure. So if I get the question right, will the fall Windows 10 releases all be minor updates? So when we went from 1903 to 1909, we did that with what we call an enablement package, which is, as you refer to, is Max, you refer to that as a minor update, and it's a very small update. And going to 20H2 from 2004 as well will be an enablement package. It is something that we've been testing out. We can't make any promises that we'll continue to do it, or that we'll continue to do it only on the H2 releases. I don't want to say fall because Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere. So in the H2 releases, so where we did with 1909 from 1903, and we are for 20H2 coming from 2004, that we know for sure is happening. After that, you know, it's a test that we're still testing out. It probably we will, but we can't make any promises to that.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Our next question comes from another anonymous questionnaire, and that would be for co-management under Endpoint Manager. Are there costs, specifically network costs, if we push software to our endpoints through Intune? Can someone tackle that question? Maybe Dune might know that answer.
Yeah, so co-management, there are certainly no there's a few different pieces to unpack there, right? So co-management itself for your Windows devices, if you're entitled to configuration manager on a Windows device, then you're also entitled to co-manage that device with Microsoft Endpoint Manager in the cloud. So with that out of the way, from a licensing for the cloud, Intune side of the house, you don't need to worry about it. In terms of software distribution, it can be a little more complicated. If we're talking about updates for Windows, then hopefully either by using Configuration Manager to manage your software updates workload and falling back to Windows Update for content distribution, or by moving the workload over to Intune and using the Windows Update for Business path, you can cover that without incurring any costs there. If you're in the unfortunate position to have a VPN with split tunnel where you're having trouble whitelisting the Windows Update software distribution network, there are some situations in which certain customers, hopefully not you, would have to distribute Windows Update content to something like a cloud management gateway and therefore have to pay for egress. But even in that case, we don't expect the cost to be very high. And hopefully, if you have a simple split tunnel setup, you'll be good to go without incurring additional costs.
Great. Thank you, Dune. Our next question, does endpoint analytics replace desktop analytics? Who wants to tackle that?
I would love to, actually. And it's a question that we actually hear a lot. When we disabled our Windows Analytics service last year in favor of desktop analytics, that we required Configuration Manager for that. And we still do, and desktop analytics has the responsibility of helping you upgrade from either Windows 7 to Windows 10. Hey, are these apps and drivers compatible? Or from an earlier version of Windows 10 to a newer version of Windows 10 with the same, hey, are these apps and drivers compatible? Endpoint analytics, even though a desktop could be considered an endpoint and they both have analytics in their name, they are completely different. Right, so endpoint analytics is something that works with Configuration Manager if you co-managed, but it's more of a Microsoft Endpoint Manager within Intune service, which will help you more with things like, hey, how long does it take for my machine to reboot, or how long does it take to wake up from sleep, and what can I do about it? So endpoint analytics isn't really about the upgrade service. It's more about how can I make my endpoint more productive and more usable for my end user, where desktop analytics is all about upgrading the device and the inventory on the device to make sure it's compatible for upgrading.
Right on. Thank you, Joe. The next question comes from Max Claster as well. Will servicing stack updates still be available as standalone for those that still have versions of Windows 10 or even installations of newer Windows 10 releases that don't have a new enough servicing stack update? Can someone help me tackle that one?
Yeah, I'd love to. So when we're talking about this new capability for on-premise management, where we start shipping the SSU and the LCU in a single package, you can actually have that capability only after taking the September SSU and the September LCU that were released on 9/8/2020, which were both published as standalone SSU and LCU. So long as you've actually updated to those updates, you can take any of the combined packages later on. So the whole reason that we put out the blog on September 8th, which I can share as well, was to get people to take the September 8th update. And after doing so, they will forever be, once we start publishing them together, they will forever be published together, but you'll have no problem taking those combined packages. You'll just need to first update to the September payload.
Great, thank you, Aria. This next question we've heard quite a few times actually, and I think we've heard it prior to Ignite. What's the story or the future for Windows Store? Will the Windows Store feature continue with Windows 10? Some tech articles suggest that it will be stopped. I think Mary Jo Foley wrote about this one. I'm going to lean on Joe for this one.
Mary Jo did indeed write about that last January. It's been a lot of months now. When she wrote about that, she actually said that the Store for Business and Store for Education would be gone by June, and here we are in the middle of September, and they're still alive and well. That was a media rumor. The Windows Store for Business will continue as Windows Store for Business. If you're using it now, go ahead, continue to use it. If you are not using it but considering it, you very well could consider that. But we would ask that you maybe consider using something like your MDM provider and using Microsoft Endpoint Manager with Company Portal, or using some of the other services. But of course, if you are using for those UWP apps, you want to use Windows Store for Business, that is still definitely an option for you.
Great. Thank you, Joe. The next one, I'm not sure how we're going to tackle this one. We don't really usually speculate ahead of release, but someone's asking if the 20H2 release is going to be called 2009 or 2010. Anyone want to speculate on a rumor, or?
Yeah, we haven't announced an official name yet, so until we do, it is Windows 10 version 20H2, at least in our hearts and minds. So once we announce it, we'll all know for sure, but until then, it's simply Windows 10 version 20H2.
Yeah, and you certainly speak about it in your session on potential features that are coming that are also available today to folks in the Windows Insider program for business. Do you want to speak a little bit about that really quick?
Yeah, so the Windows Insider program for business, actually, Aria would love to, I'm sure, plug that a little bit. What that allows you to do is allows you to download more recent builds and before they're actually available in what we call GA, or general availability. So as an example, we've already published our last version of Windows 10 version 20H2. So you can try out all those features, all those apps, all those drivers, all those settings, all the things like the new start menu and taskbar and the settings page. All that can be tried out today. And we fully support it. You can download it through VLSC. You can download it through Configuration Manager. However you're downloading, you can get that Windows Insider preview package, install it, and it's all fully supported.
Great. Thank you. If someone, if a moderator might be able to slip the link in for the Windows Insider program for business, potentially Aria or Joe, if you guys could grab that and plunk that in there when you get a chance, that'd be great. Our next one kind of dovetails along the Windows Insider program for business, as well as the Windows Insider program in general. And I'm not sure who can tackle this one. This is a good one. Why are there so many bugs slipping into updates such as the WSL2 one that should have been easy to catch before releasing? Anyone want to tempt fate and try and answer that question?
Sure. I can tell a little anecdote that I always tell. I don't think it'll necessarily be the answer that folks always want to hear, but I just wanted to call out that, you know, there's a whole bunch of folks here who care a lot about software updates, and when I talk to folks about what we are focusing on and what the most important problems to solve are in the software update space, the number one thing that we can always improve upon is Windows quality. And the reality is that the challenge that we're up against is that we have 10,000 engineers that work on Windows, and they're all human beings. And so we need to come up with the right set of technology and processes to be able to catch stuff like this. And Windows Insider program is a great example of something that is a measure for us to do that kind of thing. And we're sorry we don't catch them all, but we do try, and I'm sure there's specific stories behind each of those, and I don't have those stories here for you, but we're working on it. We're trying to do better and have ideas like that can help us prevent this in the future. Great,
thank you, Dan. Our next question comes from Anonymous, who's busy with lots of questions this evening. I know there are tasks we can perform from Graph to automate endpoint management tasks, but would like to know, do we have a PowerShell commandlets available for endpoint management to automate the tasks, i.e. app installation, uninstallation, and items like that? Who might be able to tackle that one? We might need to reach deeper into our grab bag of folks here, our experts, to have someone tackle that question.
I think we might need to. Yeah, I'm probably the closest to that question. Like we use Graph. Certainly Graph is accessible from PowerShell, but in terms of commandlets, I'm not super familiar. So we might have somebody in our back pocket here who can help with that in the text chat.
Yeah, typically when we take a look at installing, uninstalling, and managing applications through Endpoint Manager, we are using Graph. And if you wanted to use PowerShell, there's no reason you couldn't deploy a PowerShell script as you would any other application. But using PowerShell, tying into Configuration Manager, as Dune said, probably none of us here are experts on all those commandlets.
Simon's answering in the chat.
Great. Thanks, Simon.
Great. Thank you, Simon. Will Software Center still exist since Company Portal will support both Intune and MEM?
Yes, yes, it will. Software Center, actually, the new version of Software Center was my baby once upon a time. We're trying to build, we think that our customers agree with us that the right model is for us to have one app portal. I think it makes sense for us to be showing progress towards being able to support everything that we want to support in the company portal UI. But certainly you shouldn't be worried about us pulling the rug out from under you and making Software Center go away. It's not something that we did when we introduced the new Software Center UI in 2016, and it's not something that we will do again in the near future.
Okay, thank you, Dune. There's another question here. I'm not sure how to ask this. They had suggested it's kind of a fragment, but I think it's about allowing admin privileges for specific programs. Will we ever be granting that? And I'm not sure on a technical level who might be able to answer that question.
When I saw that question, I was thinking of course, user account control, and using user account control, you can definitely give admin rights. It's not the same as some of the third-party identity providers that you can install on top of Windows 10. I'm not going to give any names, actually, but it's not like some of those third-party providers. Using user account control, you can definitely say, I want this application to run in an administrative privilege. When you deploy an application through something like Configuration Manager, you can have that deployment run as a system, as opposed to as a specific user. But giving admin rights for a specific program typically can be done through something like a user account control dialog.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Now, as we kind of wait for additional questions to come in, I thought I'd float a question out to this group here. We have pivoted a number of our content documents to simplify or distill down what we have around Windows as a service to focus around plan, prepare, and deploy. As companies embrace modern management and move forward, what are some of the things that you would recommend commercial customers look to do in order to plan, prepare, and deploy more efficiently, such that they can ensure devices in their organizations are protected and productive? So I'd like to start maybe with Dune on that one, and then come to Arya and Joe for additional comments.
Sure. Let's see. I'm not sure which of the three I want to address.
I'm going to give you the choice. Then we'll make sure the other two have to answer the others.
I mean, I think I would just take the opportunity to, I think in plan we have great adoption on desktop analytics. I think a lot of folks, there are a lot of success stories out there of folks who've leveraged desktop analytics to assess the state of their app compat estate, and desktop analytics being pivoted specifically around kind of the deployment of a big Windows 10 feature update. Definitely an important piece of the plan space that we'd encourage folks to check out. I also would encourage folks in their planning phases to, if you're using a task sequence to do your major 10 to 10 upgrades, I'd really encourage you to take another look at feature updates using WSUS with Config Manager. You don't need to use one of our servicing plans that creates an ADR behind the scenes, but even just getting to a place where you can deploy that feature update content. So you're deploying a CM software update object can get you a much smoother end user experience. So check that out. We, right now, totally acknowledge that there's some additional, work you have to do most likely to make that work, depending on the languages you need to support, depending on your requirements, and we're working on making that easier for you. But I'd encourage you to take another look at it because we still think that that's the best experience that you can get, or sorry, that's a better experience that you can get than what you're getting now with task sequences. That's my soapbox.
There you go. Okay, thank you. Aria, do you have any suggestions or thoughts on how companies can move forward with modern management scenarios more efficiently?
Yeah. So I think the first one I'm going to touch on is kind of related to what Dune was talking about, is the planning phase of, for those of you out there that use group policy and you've had the same group policy set since Windows 7, please don't. And by that I mean, one of the biggest things that we've been improving upon release over release with Windows 10, especially in the Windows Update area, or for those of you using WSS Standalone in the Windows Update node to manage those update experiences, we've made a lot of improvements and a lot of changes. And one of the biggest things that I spend time helping commercial customers with is those customers who've set conflicting policies or policies that aren't supported on Windows 10, but they're still setting them because they've been setting them forever. And so this is something where it's a great time. We've really been working hard to update our documentation and providing resources of which policies you should set. We've made great strides with things such as compliance deadline, where we now have built into the update platform active hours. And instead of automatically restarting you right after install, we might actually try to wait and do it automatically outside of active hours when the user isn't there, and built in a lot of technology to try and make it easier and less disruptive for your end users. And so as part of your planning, I really encourage you to look into the improvements there, primarily towards end user productivity and compliance, because there are a lot of things there. For example, those of you using engaged restart, I would recommend using compliance deadlines, and that's just one example. And then I think on the prepare front, we already touched on a little. I am a huge fan of Windows Insider Program for Business. I spend a lot of my life trying to make sure that we get all of those updates out there for you guys to test on. And I don't care if you're not going to be on the latest release. You can still look at what the latest release is going to be and see how it is in your environment, not just to test out if it works with your line of business applications, but to really find out of what features are in it for me, what security is in it for me, how do my policies work with it? Does my configuration manager account deploy the latest update the correct way, the way that I want it to? And so I'd always recommend that for plan and for prepare. And now on to Joe.
Yeah, let's turn it over to Joe. Joe, any additional suggestions before we get to our next question?
Yeah, my big suggestion would be to take a look at Windows Autopilot. If you haven't yet, Windows Autopilot can be used for procuring new devices, or it can also be used for your existing devices through Configuration Manager or through Microsoft Endpoint Manager with Intune. And if you do have a lot of workers that might still be remote, take a look at how your VPN is configured to make sure you're doing split tunnel if that's allowed in your company, or if all of the traffic is actually going to the VPN, because that'll saturate the network, making it harder to do those updates and even stay up to date. So again, look at split tunnel VPN, look at, as Dune said, desktop analytics, Windows Autopilot, and those are things you can do quickly. And of course, tenant attach and co-management, which if you saw Brad's session earlier today, or if you will see it later today, one of the things he says, as soon as you get off of this call, enable tenant attach, and I would recommend that as well.
That's great, and we're flashing on the screen here where some great sites that you can learn more. The learning path certainly includes 3 modules on plan, prepare, and deploy in order to help you stay current with Windows 10. The Windows 10 Office Hours is a program we've kicked off. The Windows 10 Update Baseline, designed by a number of our colleagues within the Windows Servicing and Delivery team, have been superb in helping customers build better velocity and resilience around their monthly quality updates as well as their twice yearly feature updates. So thank you for sharing that on the screen. Our next question, any way to automate deployment of RSAT to match feature update versions, which are deployed via servicing plans in a co-managed environment with Endpoint Manager and Intune? Someone can help me with that?
The RSAT tools are not included with Windows. They are something that need to be installed separately. That's the remote server administration tools, for those of you that don't know what RSAT is. But they get installed, and it's true, we do make them for different versions of Windows 10 because they would be installed for different versions of Windows 10. Automating the install so that it only installs on 20H2 when you install 20H2. It's because it's a separate application, and maybe Aria or Dune can correct me, and I'm happy to be corrected. You simply just download the version that matches your operating system or the one you want to manage. No argument, so silence is golden.
No corrections here.
Silence is acceptance.
Fair enough. The panel has come to consensus. We have a quorum. Okay. Our next question comes from Keith and is lapse for AAD still in the pipeline? We don't typically speculate on future efforts in the pipeline relative to Ignite, but I don't know if anyone wants to discuss lapse at all. I'm not even sure what lapse is, so I need some help.
Lapse is local administrative privileges, and it's typically it's on the desktop itself. As you said, we don't speculate. We can't really give a lot of roadmap information. I can tell you that it's a highly requested feature, and I can leave it at that.
I can confirm that. It is highly requested.
Okay, thank you both. Our next question, do we have anything new in terms of inbox repair tool? I'm not sure that our panel has the right people to staff an answer or reply for that particular question.
They have some of the folks from the deployment team in the chat who may be able to more effectively answer that.
It may help if you also clarify exactly what you mean, such as do you mean repair with your device isn't updating properly, or repair as in your device has hit an issue?
Okay, well, we'll see if we get an update on that. While we wait for that, Chris is asking a question on what's the future of Windows Sandbox?
So Windows Sandbox is first of all, we have about 2 minutes left, so this is probably going to be the last answer. Windows Sandbox is a feature that became available in Windows 10 version, I want to say 1903. And what this does, it allows you to spin up a virtual Windows 10 instance. In case you want to test out an application, you don't know if it's going to be, you download it from the internet, you're really afraid to put it on your own desktop, you can put it on Windows Sandbox. And then when you close the sandbox, anything you did to it gets eliminated, and then you simply start up a new one. And we've made some improvements to it in 19H2 and some more improvements in 20H1. The future of Sandbox it's something that we're still developing for, and I think Steve is actually in the chat window, can probably answer some of those questions about Sandbox. But it's something we're still developing. I can't give a roadmap on the features that we're adding, or even if there's going to be a licensing change. It's a feature that we continue to build on in Windows 10. And
Great.
For that reason, to allow you to test applications before deploying them on your machine, just in case you download it from a malicious site or an untrusted site.
Okay. I do want to see if we have time for one more question. There's one I see in the chat window that I do want to tackle with Aria's help. I want to check with our producers on time. Are we okay to have one more question?
We are at time at the moment, unfortunately, but we can just answer it in the panel through text.
Okay,
Great.
We'll take care of that offline. Well, I want to thank everybody for their time tonight and joining us for our first Q&A. We'll have more tomorrow, and we welcome any additional questions. But thank you for your time this evening, or it could be your morning or your afternoon. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks, everyone.